when you have verbal intimacy, emotional intimacy, and spiritual intimacy all working at the same time in your marriage, it's beautiful. And I'm going to tell you, in almost every marriage that you counsel that's hurting or broken, they're missing all three.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the third of our four-part series led by marriage counsellor Matt Loehr. And Matt's talking to us about things that we can fix in our marriage to make our marriages great. And the whole idea of marriage is that it becomes the greatest thing in your life to enable you to do all the other things much more effectively. We've already spoken about intimacy and communication. That's a corker for men and for women. Go and listen to that. I know there's two blokes here listening, but we've been married for a while. We've learned from our wives, and we're sharing some of the things that we know, that we've read about, and that we've learned ourselves with you. So the first one was intimacy and communication. The second one was intimacy in emotions. Men, that's a big one for you. You don't have to share your emotions, but you have to understand your wife's emotions. Go and have a listen. Today, Matt, we're talking about intimacy around faith. Now, let's recognize that we've got tens of thousands of supporters from all faiths and none. A lot of them will be Christians. But why have you chosen this as such a major thing in all the marriage counselling that you've come up with?
Well, there's nothing more intimate to talk about than your faith in God and life after death and your purpose for being on the earth. I mean, politics and religion are the top two lightning rod conversations all across the world.
Yep.
And a lot of couples get married and spend a lifetime together, never even talking about faith or God or their beliefs. And I find that to be fascinating. But when you do, and when you enter into that pool together carefully and respecting each other, it can create a bond. It can create a depth in your marriage that I kind of I look at it like welding two pieces of steel together that are unbreakable. And without spiritual unity or at least some form of co-agreement, it's almost like you can become two individuals living under the same roof.
Yep.
And especially in an immoral world, a world that is immoral, then what's your lighthouse? Like, what's the beacon in the dark night? And when you both agree with your faith, it's like, okay, now we have a way to protect our family and our marriage and our life, and we have a direction. But without spiritual unity or spiritual intimacy, it's kind of aimless. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
And for those, if people are listening who aren't Christians, it's relevant to you too. What are your shared values? As a couple, what are you living for as a couple? What's your aim as a couple? And you might think, well, our aim as a couple, yeah, not just your aim as an individual, but as a couple. What are you going for in your family, outside of your family? What do you want people to think of you when they look at you as a couple? And man, this is your kind of vision thing. And there is a biblical analogy: without vision, the people perish. But it applies to everybody, not just Christians. You've got to have a vision for what you want to do with your marriage, with your life, with your values. Can I share one anecdote with you, Matt, which has just come to mind? I was sat in having dinner with somebody in one of the London clubs called the Reform Club. I wasn't a member, but he was. He's long since died. A place where it features around the world in 80 days. It's I think they start the journey there. But one of the old clubs, and there was a father and son on the table behind me having quite a loud conversation, so I wasn't eavesdropping. It was just quite interesting. And he was giving his son marital advice, and he was saying, look, the thing that really matters is not that you like the same things, because you'll never find a woman who's got the same hobbies and likes as you. Thing is that you hate the same things. Because if you hate something that she likes, or if she hates something that you like, that's going to be a problem. I thought that's quite profound. And this faith thing is what that's about. If you're with somebody whose fundamental values are different to yours, they love something you dislike, or you dislike something you it's really important you talk that through and work a way around that. And I think this is what you're saying about faith as well, Matt. So as Christians, it's not good enough for us to say, well, we're both Christians. That's the end of the Christian conversation in our house, is it? No, there's a lot more to it than that. What more is there?
So I grew up in a small Protestant church, and my dad was a reverend. So I grew up in the Bible like deeply, and my father had us read the Bible multiple times as a family. So here we have two worlds: a woman who is illiterate biblically, and I was very literate biblically, and so we had quite a differentiation between the two of us. And so Pam and I started doing Bible studies together, and a lot of it was I was very careful with her. I was very gentle. And there was a lot she didn't know, and no one had ever taught her. And she grew rapidly and quickly, and so we found out that overall we just kept having the same agreements and the same vision and the same purpose. And I think that's what's created this bond of intimacy. And so now we meet once a week, and every Thursday morning at 7 in the morning, we do a 1-hour Bible study, and this is how it works. This is how we create intimacy in our marriage. And this isn't for everybody. I read one chapter out loud, and then when I'm done, I look at her and I ask her three things. What about that chapter jumps out at you? Like, what are your thoughts? What's God saying to you? She loves that question. Listen to this. This is verbal intimacy, emotional intimacy, and spiritual intimacy all at the same time. It's all happening at the same time. She feels validated. She feels emotionally close. I'm asking her, hey, honey, what's your opinion on this chapter? And then I might say, number 2, what do you think God's saying here? What do you think is some application to our marriage and our life with this chapter? And number 3, is there anything here that's confusing? And I just let her dialogue. I don't argue. I don't, oh, well, I disagree. I don't do that. But then I also get to share my thoughts on those 3 things. That's all we do. That's it for 1 hour. And that it creates unity. She feels valued. I'm listening. And then, like you said earlier, I love how you said it. And sometimes I'll paraphrase back to her. So what you're saying is you think it means this. And she's like, yeah. She loves that, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a real winner.
That's
a
home
men
run.
are listening. Yeah, if you haven't listened to the other 2 podcasts, go and listen to them because they're really important for men. But the relating back, so you feel this way because...
Right.
Oh, that's a real winner. Absolutely.
And so...
It means you're understanding.
It's not argumentative. This is not a workbook. It's not, oh my goodness, all this work. No. Husbands, listen. By the way, try this for 20 minutes. Don't do a whole hour. And read together. And they got Bible apps now you can download and play the audio and say, hey, what jumped out at you? And by the way, we've had some chapters that are pretty benign, and there's really there's no gold in those hills. And sometimes Pam will say, hey, this morning, let's do another chapter until we get to some good stuff. I'm like, okay, good idea. So it's organic, it's simple, but it creates spiritual intimacy. And all that really is that you're discussing, communicating, talking through spiritual things, and you're merging your morals and your values for a greater purpose. That's what it is.
That's really great. That's really great. I mean, it's kind of, so my wife grew up in the church. Whereas I didn't. I wasn't converted till I kind of just before I came to university. So, you know, she's much more of a background, Sunday school, learning verses, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of think I know it all because I read a lot and, you know, quick study, all that sort of stuff. So I do think I know it all. But actually, I'm often wrong because what she brings to the table, not just in terms of looking at the Bible, but also just in general life, it's almost like a life is a scene, and I look at the scene and I kind of describe the scene, but it's almost like she stood in a different position to me, and she sees things I don't see, and she sees things I can't see because she stood somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? And that comes through not just in scripture, but in every aspect of our life. And I really appreciate the angle she sees from, because I don't see from that angle, you know? That comes through if you're kind of discussing biblical things together. She'll often bring something to the equation, and I think, I was sure I kind of knew and had squeezed everything out of that passage. But gosh, you've seen something I didn't, which is really great.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I have some disagreements on our interpretation or our what we think the Bible means here or there, but it's pretty rare. I mean, here's one that we disagree on. I think this is funny. It always turns into some joking around, and she'll poke me during a sermon on Sunday. The Trinity. I'm like, well, first of all, who can really explain the Trinity? Who really fully understands the Trinity?
Right.
So I have my version, she has hers, and we laugh about it. But it creates such deep bonds. And here's the way that she'll describe it. She'll say, when you pursue your faith, and especially when you pursue your Christian faith, it creates a brotherhood and a sisterhood that you can't find anywhere else. Not only in your marriage, but in other fellowship.
Yeah.
And how many men or women go through their whole life as a Christian without discussing such heavy things? They don't ever get into the heavy stuff. They don't get into and you know who really pays the price? Children.
Oh, yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And we haven't, in all of our sessions, we haven't really spoken about children. I mean, that's a whole other discussion, kind of parenting and that sort of stuff. And maybe we should look at that at some point, because it's such a huge area. But you're absolutely right, and it brings to mind the way you're talking about this, and the way you're kind of looking at the sharing with your wife. I think it was Tozer's analogy, A.W. Tozer, who said that if you're tuning pianos, the best way to tune them is with a tuning fork, not against another piano. And that if you and your spouse both look at the Bible together and tune yourself to the Bible, you will inevitably be in the best tune with each other.
Beautiful.
And play harmony together, And that's a great one. That's a real great one.
So let me show you this. My father had passed away 10 years ago. My father was my hero.
Right.
Literally.
That's great.
Biblically, emotionally. If you could just map out the best dad a kid could ever have, that was my dad.
Oh,
and my dad went through a lot of trials and tribulations. My mother cheated on him. My mother left him for a year with her lover. I wasn't born yet. Do the math. I wasn't born. My mother's gone. My father has my two sisters. My mother abandoned the marriage. And then she came back a year later. My father forgave her, and they stayed married 60 years and had 4 more sons. Wow. And they finished inseparable. They finished strong. And I asked my dad before he died, how'd you get through all that, Dad? Hey, Dad, how did you get through all that turbulence and all that betrayal and all that? And he showed me, and this is his Bible.
Wow.
And as I flip through it, this is my dad. Every page has so many notes and so much. This is the answer.
That's
and
great.
So spiritual intimacy isn't really just for you and your wife. It flows over into your children, and it gets permeated into you, and it adds a whole other element of purpose and strength for you to make a difference in this life and figure out what are you here for?
What are you here for? Yeah, that's right. And it's that issue of a 3-strand cord is not easily broken, you know? The two of you kind of with that spiritual intimacy as well, you're unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable.
And so here are some more thoughts if you're listening. This journey spiritually helps you grapple with modern day challenges. Here's one. How much alcohol should we drink or not drink? Okay.
Yep.
What kind of movies should we allow into our home and watch with sexual content, not only for us but our children? Okay. And then the whole LGBTQ and all that's going on in that whole arena.
Yep.
What's right? What's wrong? What's good? What's bad? How do you answer all these questions? Well, going on a spiritual journey with your spouse is the answer.
Yep.
You grapple with all these things together, and you build what I call a unified front for you and your home and your family. And that is very intimate and very, very powerful.
Yeah, and it's so important that, because we take longer to mature than a lot of other mammals live, you know? And part of that is because it's this cultural thing. So again, as a couple, a lot of these things we're talking about matter because people haven't had the pre-marriage conversations. That's an important thing. And I do some stuff with people quite regularly about premarital stuff and things you should discuss together before you get married. And a lot of these things are because you haven't done that. But this idea of what are our joint values? What do we really believe about all these things? Because if we're given kids, if by God's grace we have children, our job is to pass our culture on to them, and that takes years, and you can really mess that up unless you know what culture you're trying to pass on. So that's the important of this, whether you're a Christian or not. What do we believe? What do we agree about? What are we going to pass on to our children?
That's right.
So important.
Statistically, 2 out of 100 children will grow up pursuing their faith when only mom does.
Right.
Where dad does, 44 out of 100 will grow up pursuing their faith.
Yeah.
A father pursuing his faith has a tremendous impact on children, far more than mother could ever do.
Yeah.
And researchers can't figure that out, and we won't really know until we stand before God why it's designed that way. But
Incredible.
when mom and dad pursue their faith, tremendous impact on your children.
Great. And sidebar, for churches, they often have youth work, which is a low-hanging fruit and easy to do. Why don't you try reaching out for the dads?
Yeah, I agree.
Because the rest of the family comes too then.
I agree. And one of the ways I do that is I'm a big outdoorsman. I hunt, I fish, I golf, and I love to meet men in that arena where find some common interests, build relationships, and just see where God might take it. And that has gone very well at using common interests as an entry point into the life of a man. And so, but yeah, this is it. When you have verbal intimacy, emotional intimacy, and spiritual intimacy all working at the same time in your marriage, it's beautiful. And I'm going to tell you, in almost every marriage that you counsel that's hurting or broken, they're missing all three.
Yeah. And they're relatively easy to fix. I would say the verbal one is most easy. So go and listen to that video. The emotional one, just get over yourself. Actually, it is quite easy to fix. And the spiritual one, well, if you've messed it up to this point, the past does not equal the future. It's with a bit of effort and a bit of, somebody wise who can steer you through. It's fixable. Everything is fixable. So just go for it. And the investment pays off. This is better than Bitcoin. The investment really pays off. And we'll find out perhaps in our fourth session exactly more about that maybe.
Yes. And I just talked to a husband recently. Him and his wife are having a really rough go of it. And he says, Matt, I'm committed to all four, but I've been doing it for a couple weeks and it's not working. I said, a couple weeks? I said, buddy, commit to 6 months.
Yeah.
No matter her behavior, commit to 6 months of this every week. And his tendency is, I'll try this. It doesn't work. Then he quits. Like you can't do that. Yeah. You got to create a new rhythm. You've got to create a little bit more longevity, or she won't even believe you. She won't believe you're serious.
That's absolutely right. She won't believe you're serious.
No. And so, get past the first few months. Are you kidding me, Matt? I got to commit to 6. Yes, this is your marriage you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not going to get healthy overnight.
You haven't got to commit you've got to commit for the rest of your life. That's what you're promised. And if you're a Christian, that's what Jesus has done, by the way. Yep. So he committed his life, his death, and the whole of eternity to your salvation. Yep. Suck it up and just do a tiny bit in response.
Right.
Offer yourself as a living sacrifice, which is your reasonable response, as Romans tells us. It's not rocket science. And it's not even sacrifice, because the rewards are just unbelievably great. Brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much for that. Tune in to our fourth one. If you haven't listened to the first two on intimacy around conversations, intimacy around emotions, go and listen to those two. And then tune in for our fourth on intimacy around physical, coming up very soon. Matt Loehr, thank you for your time.
Thank you.